The silence of the dark universe surrounded a ship in the far reaches of the Milky Way. The endless void of space, cold and unforgiving, loomed like a giant beast, ready to devour everything. But in the middle of that emptiness, a ship had broken past the speed of light, cutting through the infinite darkness. This ship was the last refuge of a man whose name even the galactic federations and ancient empires feared. Karon Valtor, the last human of the universe, the last emperor. Karon sat deep in thought in his command chair, questioning how the universe had come to this. Humanity had once been a species that ruled the stars. Their empire's borders stretched beyond the Milky Way, reaching neighboring galaxies. But greed, civil wars, and jealousy had brought that great empire to ruin. His kind had destroyed each other with their own hands. One by one, planets exploded, endless wars broke out, and the chaos seemed never-ending. And only one man was left behind. Karon was alone in his quest to continue his lineage. He was the last representative of the human race. But loneliness did not lead him to despair. On the contrary, a fire burned inside him, the desire to become the most powerful being in the universe. He would rule over the galaxies and their women. He possessed ancient powers. His body was genetically enhanced beyond human capabilities. The source of this power came from the ancient genetic legacy of a long-lost race known as the Kennel. That legacy flowed through Karon's blood, making him superior to all other beings in the universe. But his ultimate goal was not just power or domination. He wanted to continue his lineage, to bring humanity back. For this, he needed the most beautiful and powerful women in the universe. The ship was connected to Karon's mind. It obeyed him. With a single thought, star maps opened, and intergalactic travel routes were calculated. His destination was clear: the Andromeda Quadrant. There, on a planet known throughout the universe for its unmatched beauty and fierce warrior spirits, women had established their own kingdom. These women, known as the Nebula Queens, had never been ruled by any man. But Karon had made up his mind to bring them to their knees. As the ship sped through the Andromeda Quadrant at light speed, Karon's mind buzzed with plans. How would he make his presence known to the powerful women of this planet? How would he control them and establish a dynasty to carry on his lineage? As his mind stormed with these questions, the ship's radar suddenly picked up a signal. He knew they were nearing the Andromeda Quadrant. Step by step, he was getting closer to his goal. When Karon stepped outside the ship, he squinted his eyes as he gazed upon the majestic planet. The atmosphere was covered with thick clouds of mist. Under a scorching red sun, its green glowing ocean shimmered, promising an unsettling beauty. The palace of the Nebula Queens, towering marble structures, was so vast that it could be seen even from the atmosphere. Karon's anticipation grew as he imagined witnessing their great power. But it wouldn't be easy. These queens were not the kind to bow down to the last emperor of the human race, and that only fueled Karon's determination further. As soon as he stepped out of his ship, ancient guards, equipped with technological armor and spears, formed a barricade around him. Silent and deadly, they approached him. Karon walked among them without fear. He could feel the power whispering within him. This power wasn't just a legacy that flowed through his veins. It was a mystical force collected from the darkest corners of the universe, feared by all beings. Leading the guards was Queen Aeolus, clad in smooth golden armor. Aeolus was the most beautiful and powerful of the Nebula Queens. Her cold eyes scanned Karon from head to toe, as if judging whether he was a threat. There wasn't the slightest expression on her face, but the guards behind her were on high alert, waiting for a single command. "What are you doing here, human?" asked Aeolus, her voice metallic and echoing. "There are no more beings like you living on this planet." Karon smiled. Without blinking, he met Aeolus' cold gaze. "I know you are the queens of this planet," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "But a new era is beginning. Humanity will be reborn, and you will be the queens of this new age." Aeolus laughed, mocking Karon's words. "A human thinks he will rule over us? Your weak race has already gone extinct. You have no power, no presence left. Here, in this cosmos, only we exist. As Karon stepped closer, that dark power coursed through his veins. His eyes glowed, and the words slipped from his lips. "Do not underestimate me, Queen. Ancient powers lie within my blood, and you will understand that very soon." Suddenly, the air around them thickened, and waves of energy rippled outward. The guards were tense, but they realized they could not resist Karon's power. As he unleashed his dark energy, all the guards collapsed, unable to breathe. Ayla's eyes widened in shock. She had sensed Karon's power. "This is only the beginning," Karon said. "I will rule over you, and you will bear the heirs to my dynasty." As the ground beneath Karon's feet trembled in the Nebula Kingdom, the cold expression on Queen Ayla's face gave way to deep astonishment. The guards had fallen to their knees, struggling to breathe. She had felt the dark power inside this man, the ancient power spoken of in whispers from all corners of the universe. This was no ordinary human, but the pride in Ayla's soul refused to submit. Her kingdom had never bowed to a man, and she thought Karon would be no different. However, something was changing deep within her. Karon's dark aura was not only affecting her mind, but her body as well. This power was something that broke the laws of balance in the universe. When Karon reached out his hand toward Ayla, she involuntarily took a step back. The first time in her life, she felt true fear in her heart. Karon spoke calmly. "I know you're afraid, Ayla. This fear will make you weak, but I have an offer for you. As the strongest queen in the universe, submit to me, continue my lineage, and we will rule the galaxies forever. Resist, and I will destroy both you and your kingdom." The queen's gaze froze in his dark eyes. "We, the Nebula Queens, have never bowed to anyone throughout history. Who do you think you are to speak like this?" Karon smiled. "I am the last emperor of the universe. The power I carry in my blood is older than the stars themselves. The one standing before you is the last and only heir of the human race. If you do not submit to me, it won't just be you, but your entire planet that will be crushed by this power." For a moment, Ayla took a step back, but her nerves of steel quickly regained control. She had ruled these ancient lands for centuries and wouldn't submit. Gathering her guards once again, she pointed fiercely at Karon. "Take this man. Lock him in the royal dungeons. As long as I am the queen of this cosmos, no man will ever rule on this planet." But Karon stood motionless, his dark eyes glowing with power. As the guards charged toward him, a wave of energy erupted from Karon's hand, throwing all the guards back. Their armor shattered, and Karon didn't take a single step as he easily brought them to their knees. "So, you want to resist," Karon said, locking his gaze onto Ayla. "Then get ready to witness the true power of the universe. I will show you mercy, but only once." Karon raised his hand, and the energy that burst from his fingertips shook the walls of the royal palace. Dark clouds began to swirl in the skies, while the waves of energy filling the atmosphere shook the palace itself, as though threatening to tear it apart. At that moment, Ayla realized that this man's power wasn't just limited to battle skills. He held the power to change the very nature of the universe. For a brief moment, a deep silence fell. Karon looked to the sky, raising his hands. That dark energy, collected from all corners of the universe, was being unleashed. The queens had not expected this much. Ayla, trapped in the cold grip of fear, questioned what she could do against this man. "Now is the time to choose, Queen Ayla," Karon said. "Either the universe will bow to me, or it will be trapped in endless darkness." For a moment, Ayla suppressed her rage. She looked at her guards. She knew none of them could withstand Karon's power. Watching the destruction of the kingdom she had ruled for centuries was not an option for her. But at the same time, her pride told her not to surrender. Ayla's mind was caught in a complicated battle. If she bowed down, would she become Karon's slave, or could she rule by his side? At last, Ayla took a deep breath and looked Karon directly in the eyes. I am not surrendering to you, she said, her voice still cold, but with hints of acceptance. But I will make a deal with you. This planet and my people are not yours. But if you need my help to continue your lineage, I will make that happen. Karon nodded, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. This is only the beginning, Aeolus. Together, we will rule this universe and the galaxies. Continuing our lineage and reshaping the universe is our destiny. The Queen's gaze remained cautious, but deep down, she knew that resisting Karon's power was impossible. At that moment, one of the most powerful queens in the cosmos had accepted Karon's might. However, this was only the beginning. Many more queens, warriors, and planets would have to bow before this emperor. Aeolus didn't kneel before Karon, but there was now a sense of acceptance in her eyes. So, Karon Valtor, she said, speaking his name aloud for the first time. What happens next? What do you plan to do with this power? Karon smiled as he gazed into the distant galaxies. First, we will introduce this planet to the universe. Then, one by one, kingdoms will submit to me. Together with you, we will make our lineage the most powerful beings in the cosmos. They then retreated to the palace halls. The coldness on Aeolus' face had not yet faded, but she understood the depth of the power Karon possessed. His goal wasn't just to rule. He would change the balance of the universe entirely, spreading his lineage across every corner of it. This was the greatest challenge the Nebula Queens had ever faced in their history. Later that night, Karon and Aeolus detailed their agreement in the depths of the palace. Aeolus would protect her kingdom, while Karon would take the most powerful women of the planet to continue his lineage. This agreement would change both the future of the cosmos and the balance of power in the universe forever. As Karon's ship continued its journey to the deepest corners of the galaxy, Aeolus' kingdom had now become the first step in his plan to spread his seed. But greater steps were still needed for the plan to succeed. The agreement between Karon and Queen Aeolus was the first spark of an empire that would spread across the entire galaxy. The capital of the Nebula Queens, the Androma Quadrant, had now become the foundation stone of Karon's imperial throne. But this was just the beginning. Karon was now expanding his plans, aiming to turn his lineage into a dynasty that would rule the galaxies. As his ship glided through the deep darkness of space, heading toward the borders of galaxies, one thought dominated Karon's mind: more power, more queens, more empire. The Nebula Queens were only the first step for his dark power. Karon needed to gather the strongest women in the universe. To do this, planets had to be conquered, and queens had to submit. Aeolus, standing by Karon's side, silently questioned how far this man could go. She had saved her kingdom, but had also become part of Karon's ambitions for a new empire. The blood of the emperor boiled with a desire to spread his power to the farthest reaches of the universe. Karon turned to Aeolus, speaking with a dark smile. You've joined me as the queen of your planet, but we must seek more. Conquering a single planet is not enough in this universe. We need to find those who will continue our lineage. Queens like you are hidden in every corner of the universe. Aeolus pursed her lips and thought for a moment. For her, this deal had been made purely for survival. But now, Karon's desire to expand his empire sparked something within her. Perhaps she could increase her power alongside him. Yet, Aeolus also harbored doubts. How far would this man's power go? How wise was it to oppose him? I never believed in dark powers, Aeolus said, looking at Karon. But now I see that we can achieve much more together. If your goal is not just to continue your lineage, what do these kingdoms mean to you, Karon? Do you really only want to rule? Karon nodded slightly. Ruling is my destiny, but I will spread this destiny not just with power, but with my lineage. Queens will be the bearers of this legacy. You have already accepted this. Now, we must move on to our next target. Aeolus saw the darkness in Karon's eyes. This wasn't just about being a man or an emperor. This was the journey of a man who would change the very balance of the universe. And Karon's dark powers grew stronger with every step. The ship used an interstellar gateway to reach a new region, the the Vela constellation. In this region lay a planet called Selenia. Selenia was famous for the Lunar Queens, who lived in massive underground caves. These queens wielded magical powers that controlled moonlight, and their planet was known as a place where no man had ever set foot. But Karon didn't care. He was here to make the Lunar Queens submit and to add their power to his own. As the ship entered Selenia's cold atmosphere, the two enormous moons hanging in the sky caught Karon's attention. This planet was protected by ancient magic, defending it against any external threats. But Karon was powerful enough to overcome such defenses. As they approached the planet, Aeolus took a deep breath. Facing the Lunar Queens would be a great risk. They were known not just for their magical powers, but also for their immortality. When Karon stepped out of the ship, his feet landed firmly on the cold ground. The chill in the air gave him a sense of peace. Moonlight danced everywhere on this planet, creating a magical atmosphere. But Karon could feel that moonlight. It was the source of the Queen's power, and the dark power within him had already started to absorb that light. Aeolus walked beside Karon, gazing at the sky. "These queens are the most powerful sorcerers in the universe," she whispered. "If you can make them submit, your power will grow immensely. But be careful, Karon. Their magic might be stronger than you can imagine." Karon listened to Aeolus' words as he continued walking toward the Lunar Queen's palace. When they reached the entrance, they were met by a group of ancient guards clad in moonlight armor. These guards were neither human nor machine. They were beings created from the energy of moonlight. Karon took a few steps toward them, testing his power against these creatures. At the top of the palace appeared Queen Selene, leader of the Lunar Queens. She sat on a throne made of moonlight, her cold eyes watching Karon. Her long, silver hair glistened in the moonlight, radiating a mystical aura. She was a dark beauty, but there was a trace of terrifying power within her. "Who are you, human, who dares set foot on these lands?" Selene's voice echoed throughout the palace. "There is no place for men on this planet. Your mere presence here is an insult." Karon met Selene's gaze without bowing his head. "I am Karon Valtor, the last human emperor of the universe. I have come to rule this planet. You will be my queen and fight beside me to continue my lineage." Selene burst into laughter at these words. Moonlight enveloped her body, making her look like a goddess. "What power do you have to challenge our magic? Here, men do not rule. You will bow to the moonlight." Karon raised his hand with a dark smile. The dark power within him had once again been unleashed. The moonlight guards began to tremble all at once. Selene's eyes widened. This man's power could even control the moonlight. Karon took a determined step forward. "I am the bearer of the darkness beyond the stars. Even your moonlight will bow to me." For the first time, Selene took a step back. Everything created by the moonlight was being consumed by Karon's dark energy. The Lunar Queens had witnessed Karon's power, and this would not be the battle they had expected. When Queen Selene felt the dark power emanating from Karon, a fear unlike anything she had ever experienced gripped her body. The guards made of moonlight couldn't withstand Karon's dark aura. They melted and vanished. Instead of obeying her commands, the moonlight was being swallowed by Karon's dark energy. For the first time in her life, Selene realized she was facing true defeat. The ancient wisdom and power in Selene's eyes were slowly fading. Karon took another step forward, releasing even more of his dark energy. The moonlight guards collapsed to the ground as Karon's power reached Selene's throne. Even the throne made of moonlight was trembling, struggling against the darkness. "You can't fight me, Selene," Karon said, his voice deep and commanding. "No matter how great your power is, my darkness will consume it. Ruling is my destiny, and you will become part of that destiny." Selene took a deep breath. Her connection to the moonlight was weakening with every passing second. Karon's power was suffocating the energy around her. However, for thousands of years, Selene had been the most powerful being on this planet. The warrior spirit inside her hadn't fully surrendered yet. But deep down, she knew. This man wasn't just an emperor. He was a being capable of altering the very nature of the universe. Selene tried to maintain her composure as she looked at Karon. "The moonlight will not abandon me," she whispered. "I am the daughter of moonlight. You think you can swallow me, but we Lunar Queens never bow." Karon tilted his head slightly, almost as if admiring her resistance. "I've seen how those who refuse to bow are destroyed," he said, a dark gleam in his eyes. "But to destroy a queen like you would be a loss for the continuation of my lineage. So, I'm giving you a chance." Queen Selene furrowed her brow at these words. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice more cautious now. Karon took another step forward, getting closer to Selene's throne. "Join me," he said. "I need powerful queens like you to continue my lineage. If we combine the power of moonlight with my darkness, we will become the most powerful beings in the universe. You will serve me with the power of the moonlight. Together, we will rule the cosmos." Selene fell into deep thought upon hearing this offer. She had felt Karon's dark power. Combined with moonlight, it could indeed create an unstoppable force. But did this mean she would have to give up her freedom? For centuries, the Lunar Queens had never bowed to a man. But now, against this dark emperor, was there any other choice? Karon noticed her hesitation and gave a slight smile. "Don't let your pride be your downfall, Queen Selene. I need your power, but if you share it with me, we can create an eternal empire." Under the weight of these words, Selene took a deep breath. Then, slowly, she rose from her throne and walked toward Karon. "What kind of empire do you imagine building with me, Karon Valtor?" she asked, her voice still cold, but with hints of acceptance. Karon gazed deeply into Selene's eyes. "The combination of moonlight and darkness will create the most powerful beings in the universe. My lineage will grow with this power. You and the other queens will be the bearers of this legacy. You will share your empire with me, but the rule will be in my name." A moment of hesitation passed over Selene's face again, but the power of the moonlight within her couldn't resist Karon's darkness. When she realized even the moonlight would be consumed by the dark, she knew she had no other choice. She couldn't fight this man, and maybe standing by his side was the only way to survive and keep her power. She stepped forward and looked at Karon without bowing her head. "Fine," she said with a cold voice. "I will join you, but my kingdom will extend beyond this planet's borders. I will rule the universe alongside you." Karon smiled at this response. "This is what I've been waiting for," he said. "The Queen of Moonlight has taken her place in the Dark Empire." Without bowing, Selene had submitted, marking the first time in Lunar Queen history that they accepted the power of a man. Karon had gained not only the power of the moonlight, but also the Queen's loyalty. This was the second major step in his empire. But this was just the beginning. New targets began to form in Karon's mind. The Lunar Queens were the second circle of the Dark Empire, but he needed more. In the farthest corners of the universe, other queens and empires still hid, but they too would either submit to this dark power or be destroyed. As Queen Selene walked beside Karon and they exited the palace, the light of the moons in the sky slowly began to fade. Karon's power was being felt even on this planet. The moonlight was merging with Karon's darkness, coming under his control. "What's your next target?" Selene asked, looking at Karon. "Do you plan to conquer the universe with this dark power?" Karon gazed at the distant galaxies and nodded slightly. "I want more than just conquest," he said. "I will change the universe itself. Darkness and light will unite in this empire. My lineage will rewrite the fate of the cosmos." Selene shivered inwardly at Karon's words. This man's ambition and power were greater than she had imagined. But now, there was no turning back. She too was part of this empire, and had to stand by Karon. As the ship left the planet Selenia, Karon's dark empire continued to grow. But there were still queens and empires to conquer in the universe. As Karon set his sights on the next target, the dark power within him grew even stronger. As Karon's ship glided through the intergalactic void, The planets he left behind were becoming pieces of the Dark Empire, one by one. The Nebula Queens had submitted, and the Lunar Queens had joined Karon's darkness with their moonlight. However, Karon's hunger for power was not yet satisfied. His rule would not stop until it spread across the entire galaxy. Selene walked beside Karon on the ship. The fear in her eyes had now turned into acceptance, but a spark of rebellion still burned within her. Although the strong leader of the Lunar Queens had become part of the darkness, she had not fully bowed down. Selene constantly watched Karon. She admired his power, but also tried to stand tall in front of him. "What's the next target, Karon?" Selene asked curiously. "How far do you plan to go? Do you want to conquer the entire universe?" When Karon looked at Selene, a deep darkness filled his eyes. "I must rule every corner of the universe, spreading my lineage into an eternal empire," he said. "This is my destiny, and with queens like you, this empire will be unstoppable." Selene shivered internally at Karon's words. The dark power within this man was far greater than she could have ever imagined. But she was now part of that power and, no matter what, had to stay by Karon's side. Their ship stopped in a dark corner of the galaxy. This region was known as the Rigel constellation, an ancient and mysterious area. Here, a group called the Stellaris Queens lived. These queens were mystical beings created from stardust. They controlled the energy of the stars and could use this power to shift the balance of the universe. If Karon could rule over these queens, it would mean controlling the very fabric of the universe. As Karon stepped off the ship, he gazed into the dark sky. The stars here were brighter than anywhere else, almost alive. This planet was surrounded by stardust and energy. The struggle between darkness and light would be much more apparent here. Selene walked beside Karon, carefully observing him. "The Stellaris Queens are considered among the most powerful beings in the universe," she warned. "They were created using the energy of the stars. It won't be easy to rule over them." Karon only smiled at Selene's warning. "I wasn't expecting it to be easy," he said. "But when I make them part of the darkness, this universe will belong to us." The palace of the Stellaris Queens was a massive structure, made entirely of stardust and shining with light. As Karon approached the palace's colossal doors, he felt a wave of energy. This energy reflected the power that came directly from the stars. Karon's dark energy was already beginning to clash with this star energy. This clash was a sign of how the balance of power in the universe was about to shift. When Karon entered the palace, Queen Astrea was waiting for him. Astrea had a body made of stardust. Her eyes sparkled like stars, and she emitted a strong aura of energy. Beside her, the other Stellaris Queens stood, watching Karon closely. They didn't say a word, but the energy radiating from their presence made their power evident. Queen Astrea fixed her gaze on Karon and spoke in a cold voice. "Human who has set foot on this land, what power do you possess that could stand against the energy of the stars?" Karon responded to Astrea's challenge with a smile. "I am not just a human," he said. "I carry the darkness of the universe. Even your stars will bow to this darkness." Astrea frowned at these words. "Stars do not bow," she said, her voice growing sharper. "We, the Stellaris Queens, shape the nature of the universe. Your darkness cannot rule here." Karon took another step toward Astrea. "You won't be able to withstand my power," he said, his eyes glowing with darkness. "I have made the Queen of Moonlight bow. Now, I will add the Queens of the Stars to my darkness." Astrea suddenly flared up, responding to Karon's words. The stardust from her body created an explosion of energy. This blast surged toward Karon, but Karon released his dark energy, absorbing the star energy. The stardust merged with Karon's darkness, making his power even stronger. "You see," Karon said, his eyes now fully filled with darkness. "Even your stars will become part of my darkness." Astrea, shocked, retreated. The submission of the stardust showed the limits of her power. Karon had absorbed her strength. The Stellaris Queens couldn't resist Karon. Even the energy of the stars was being consumed by his dark power. "Now join me or be destroyed," Karon said, his voice echoing like it came from the depths of the universe. "You will rule the universe with me. Your stars will be part of my darkness." Astrea had retreated, but she had no more resistance left in her. Even the stars were defeated by Karon's power. The Stellaris Queens would become part of Karon's dark empire. Darkness and starlight were becoming the most powerful union in the universe. "Fine," Astrea said, taking a deep breath. "Our stars will serve you, but we will have our place in this empire." Karon nodded in satisfaction. "Your place is already assured, Queen Astrea," he said. "You will be the most powerful beings in the universe. But the rule begins with me." As the Stellaris Queens joined Karon's dark empire, the balance of power in the universe shifted completely. The energy of the stars became part of the darkness. Now, there was no force left that could stop Karon from expanding his empire and spreading his lineage. Karon could feel the dark power merged with the starlight. With this power, he would become the strongest emperor in the universe. But he knew his work was not yet finished. There were still many queens to conquer, many empires to subdue. When the Stellaris Queens joined Karon's dark empire, the balance of power in the universe was completely overturned. Karon's dark might, now combined with the energy of stardust and moonlight, had grown into a force spreading across galaxies. But this was only the beginning. There were still unconquered queens and empires that had not submitted. From every corner of the universe, Karon sensed the seeds of resistance growing against him. Yet, this opposition would only make him stronger. As Karon left the atmosphere of the Stellaris planet, he leaned against the dark metal walls of his ship. The power within him was growing. With each new conquest, the dark force in his blood deepened, reaching even the farthest corners of the universe. Selene and Astrea walked beside him, accompanying him as his queens. Though they had submitted to his dark power, there was still tension within them. They had been chosen to carry on his lineage, but they did not want to be crushed under the weight of such immense power. Selene looked at Karon carefully, her eyes holding traces of a dark thought. "Every day, you grow stronger, Karon," she said. "But where will this power lead you? Won't you eventually lose controls?" Karon responded to Selene's question with a slight smile. "Power is my destiny, Selene," he said, "and there is no being that can change my fate. The universe will be mine." Selene took a deep breath at his words. This man's power was going to completely alter the balance of the universe. However, she was sure of one thing: not every queen would bow to Karon. Even among the strongest women in the universe, there would be resistance. At that moment, a warning light blinked on the ship's control panel. Karon turned his attention to the alert. The ship was moving through an intergalactic region, but energy fluctuations were being detected from somewhere. This wasn't ordinary energy. Karon could feel the source. Another queen was nearby. "A dark energy," Karon whispered, narrowing his eyes slightly. "It signals the presence of another queen. But this time, it's different. This might be a power that can rival mine." Selene was surprised by his words. "Who could it be?" she asked curiously. "We've already subdued the most powerful queens in the universe. Could there be someone stronger?" Karon shook his head slightly. "This energy comes from a force as ancient as darkness itself," he said. "The Queen Nyx." Queen Nyx was known as a mythical figure living in the darkest corners of the universe. Her existence was thought to be mere legend, but Karon had sensed this ancient force. If he could conquer Queen Nyx, his empire would truly possess the power to extend beyond the boundaries of the universe. As his ship approached the dark region where Queen Nyx resided, Karon's mind was filled with thoughts of this ancient power. Queen Nyx wielded an energy older and deeper than his own darkness. If he failed to subdue her, his imperial ambitions could collapse. Nyx's planet was a dark and desolate place. The atmosphere was perpetually covered in shadows, with no light visible at all. It was a world consumed entirely by darkness. As their ship approached the planet's surface, Karon felt the dark energy growing stronger. Queen Nyx's presence enveloped this world. When Karon stepped off the ship and onto the planet's ground, he felt the trembling energy beneath his feet. This energy was connected to the oldest dark forces in the universe. Queen Nyx was as ancient and powerful as Karon's own dark energy. Selene and Astrea walked cautiously beside him as they began to explore this dark world. After walking for a while, a massive palace appeared before them. The palace seemed to be made entirely of shadows. The darkness was so dense and powerful that even the boundaries of the structure were unclear. The palace doors opened as if they sensed Karon and his queens approaching. Inside the palace, everything was bathed in darkness. The energy emanating from the walls stirred the dark power in Karon's blood. The queen who ruled this palace, Queen Nyx, was indeed one of the oldest beings in the universe. She was the only one who controlled the very essence of darkness. Sitting on her throne, Queen Nyx had a body seemingly made of shadows. Her eyes were as deep as a starless night, and her gaze was powerful enough to pierce a person's soul. She was a being above everything in this world. When Karon and the others entered, Queen Nyx fixed her eyes on them. A being who claims to be the master of darkness, Queen Nyx said, her voice echoing, eerie and terrifying. But my darkness is much older than yours. Karon stepped forward, meeting Nyx's gaze. I am the Dark Emperor of the universe, he said, his voice resolute. No matter how old your power is, you will become part of this empire. Queen Nyx remained silent for a moment before responding to Karon's challenge. Darkness is my nature, she said coldly. Your power is merely a reflection. My rule will even absorb your strength. But I do not wish to fight you. Karon was surprised by these words. Queen Nyx was offering a proposal instead of a battle. What do you mean? He asked. Nyx approached Karon and continued speaking. I can become part of your dark empire, but that means I must have my own share. Darkness does not belong solely to you. I must preserve the dark balance of the universe. Karon thought for a moment. Queen Nyx wanted to join him not by submission, but through an agreement. This agreement could further amplify his power, allowing him to control the most ancient dark forces in the universe. You want an agreement? Karon said, his eyes gleaming with darkness. Then let's grow this empire together. But the rule begins with me. Queen Nyx nodded at Karon's words. If this empire can maintain the balance of darkness, I accept. But never forget, darkness cannot always be controlled. Karon smiled faintly at her words. Controlling darkness is my destiny. With Queen Nyx now part of the empire, Karon's dark power extended to the deepest roots of the universe. However, Nyx's warning about the uncontrollable nature of darkness echoed deeply in Karon's mind. Darkness, after all, is not always controllable. As Karon returned to his ship after making a pact with Queen Nyx, the dark power within him grew stronger. Nyx's ancient energy had merged with Karon's darkness, making him the most powerful being in the universe. Yet, Nyx's final words echoed in his mind. Darkness cannot always be controlled. This warning left a lingering question within him. Darkness was his strength, but could it really be so dangerous? Selene and Astrea walked beside him in silence. They, too, had felt the depth of Nyx's power. Even as they left the planet, Nyx's presence still lingered around them. Karon was determined to spread his empire to every corner of the universe with this newfound power, but deep inside, he was starting to realize something was amiss. As the ship continued to glide through the depths of space, Karon turned to Selene. Nyx is now part of my power, he said, his eyes glimmering with dark energy. But I must heed her warning. Darkness must always be kept under control. Selene thought for a few seconds before responding. Nyx is one of the universe's oldest dark forces. Controlling her power won't be easy, but you are the leader of this empire. You must not let the darkness consume you. Karon nodded at her words. I control the darkness, he said confidently, but I still need more power. This empire will grow, but to do that, I must conquer the entire universe. Just then, a signal rang out from the ship's control panel. Karon looked at the screen to check the source. It was an intergalactic communication signal, but this wasn't an ordinary message. It was a distress call. The ship quickly made its way toward the source. The call came from the planet Lyra, one of the wealthiest planets in the universe, ruled by Queen Aria. Aria was known for her beauty and intelligence, but also for being a ruthless leader. Under her reign, the planet had become the largest trade hub in the universe. But now, the planet was under threat. Karon saw this as an opportunity he couldn't afford to miss. As the ship entered Lyra's atmosphere, Karon immediately noticed how different this planet was from the others. Unlike most, Lyra was illuminated with bright lights. Massive trade centers and towering skyscrapers filled every corner. This planet was a symbol of wealth and technology. Yet, behind this wealth lay a hidden danger. When Karon stepped off his ship, he headed straight for Queen Aria's palace. This palace was unlike those ruled by other queens. It had a modern design, with high-tech walls and advanced security systems surrounding it. Aria was a leader who combined her power with technology. But Karon knew that this technology meant nothing against his dark power. When the palace doors opened, Queen Aria stood there to greet him. She looked like a goddess in her long white gown and golden crown. However, there was a clever glint in her eyes, and her expression was cautious. She had heard of Karon's power, and she was wary of him. "Dark Emperor Karon," Aria said, her voice melodic but firm. "Welcome to my planet. I hadn't expected you to affect the universe so much in such a short time." Karon approached her with a cold smile. "I've only just begun," he replied. "But the danger Lyra is facing is what brings me here. You sent an emergency signal. What are you up against?" Aria hesitated for a moment. She knew she needed Karon's help to protect her planet and her people. But making a deal with Karon, knowing his power, was a difficult choice. "There's a threat to my planet from beyond," Aria said, her voice serious. "This threat doesn't just endanger Lyra. It could affect the entire galaxy. Even our advanced technology may not be enough to stop it." Karon frowned. "What kind of threat?" he asked. Aria turned toward the large window of the palace, looking out at the horizon. "They're beings from outside our universe. They defy the laws of physics as we know them. They can bend technology, energy, and even time. We call them the Shadows." Karon was intrigued by this description. These shadows were unlike any force or entity he had ever encountered. Yet, Karon knew there was nothing his dark power couldn't handle. If these shadows threatened his empire, they had to be destroyed. Aria trusted Karon's power, but she was cautious, knowing how dangerous this threat was. "Can you save my planet and my people, Karon?" she asked. "If you stop this threat, I will join Lyra to your empire." Karon accepted the deal without hesitation. "Once Lyra is part of my empire, I will destroy the shadows," he said. "But this will only be the beginning. You will also become part of my bloodline." Aria reluctantly agreed to Karon's dark offer. She had no choice but to submit to Karon to protect her people and her planet. However, deep down, she harbored doubts about fully trusting his power. Karon set off to find and destroy the shadows. This new threat had the potential to shift the dark balance of the universe. But if Karon succeeded in destroying them, he would have complete control over his dark empire. Underneath the glittering skyscrapers of the planet Lyra, a dark threat loomed large. These entities, known as the Shadows, defied the laws of physics and wielded powers from an unknown source. After making a deal with Queen Aria, Karon had set out to eliminate the Shadows and bring Lyra into his growing dark empire. But this battle was unlike anything he had faced before. As his ship descended into Lyra's atmosphere, Karon could feel the strange energy radiating from the Shadows. It was unlike the energy of any other dark entity. The Shadows moved beyond time and matter, and even the darkness that Karon controlled seemed weak in comparison. After disembarking, Karon, accompanied by Aria and the other queens, made their way to the capital's high-tech control center. Aria's face was etched with deep concern. This battle would determine the fate of her planet. but her faith in Karon's power kept her fear at bay. "We've located the source of shadows," Arya said as she glanced at the control panel. "They're coming through a tear at the edge of the galaxy, but we're struggling to understand the nature of the tear." Karon took a deep breath as he listened to her words. "The tear could be a doorway to another dimension," he said, his eyes gleaming with dark energy. "These shadows aren't like any beings we know, but I will use my darkness to destroy them." Selene and Astrea stood by Karon's side. Both of them felt uneasy in the face of this new threat, but they remained by his side, trusting his dark power. Yet, Nyx's warning still echoed in Karon's mind. Controlling the darkness would be a challenge, but defeating this threat was the key to conquering the universe. As Karon reached the area where the tear was located, he saw the shadows gathering. These beings had no physical form. They were made up entirely of dark silhouettes, occasionally slipping in and out of different dimensions. But the energy they emitted was strong enough to suppress even Karon's dark powers. "What do we need to do to destroy these creatures?" Arya asked, her voice filled with fear. As Karon stepped closer to the shadows, he answered coldly, "I'll make their energy part of my darkness. If I can control them, I'll hold the universe's greatest power. But if I fail..." His words were cut short as the shadows began moving toward him. Karon unleashed his dark energy to stop them, but the shadows began absorbing it, slowly draining his power. Even his darkness was helpless against these entities. Selene, Astrea, and Arya watched in alarm as Karon struggled. These shadows were unlike anything they had ever seen. Darkness could not control them. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty appeared in Karon's eyes. This battle was far more difficult than he had anticipated. As the shadows' assault intensified, Karon's dark aura weakened. Nyx's warning echoed in his mind again. Darkness cannot always be controlled. Karon was facing a danger beyond his ability to control his own power. If he couldn't stop the shadows, not only Lyra, but the entire universe would be consumed by them. Suddenly, a massive wave of energy erupted from within the shadows, sending Karon and the queens flying back. Selene and Astrea rushed to help Karon up, while Arya stared in shock at the control panels. The power of the shadows had reached the planet's core. Time, space, and energy were colliding, distorting the fabric of reality on Lyra. "Karon, what are we going to do?" Astrea asked, her voice trembling with fear. Karon forced himself to his feet, gathering his dark energy once more. "These shadows cannot be controlled by darkness," he said harshly. "But I must go beyond the darkness. To destroy them, I need an even greater power." Selene looked at Karon worried. "A greater power? Even Nyx's strength couldn't stop these creatures. What are you planning to do?" Karon fixed his dark gaze on the shadows. "The shadows feed on darkness. But I won't just use the darkness. I'll use the starlight, the moonlight, and the energy of the universe itself. I will spread their power across the cosmos." With these words, Karon unleashed all of his power. The stardust from the Stellaris Queens, the moonlight from the Lunar Queens, and the ancient darkness from Nyx merged together. Karon's body became engulfed in an explosion of energy. The shadows began to tremble in the face of this overwhelming force. As Karon continued to advance toward the shadows, he drew on his control over the darkness to absorb their energy. But at the same time, he noticed something changing within his own body. The dark forces were growing beyond his control. Nyx's warning was coming true. Darkness cannot always be controlled. Even if Karon managed to destroy the shadows, he realized that he might not be able to control his own power. If he won this battle, his dark empire itself could be in jeopardy. His own strength was starting to consume him. At last, Karon gathered all of his energy and struck the shadows with a final blow. The shadows exploded in a massive eruption. But this victory came at a cost. Karon's body had undergone an irreversible transformation. His own dark power had begun to slowly consume him. As Queen Arya and the other queens watched Karon's triumph, they sensed that something within him had changed. The darkness was no longer under his control. The Empire could continue to grow with immense power, but the price of that power was steep. The victory over the shadows signaled a turning point in Karon's journey. The dark forces that had once made him invincible were now threatening to destroy him from within. The Empire might still rise, but Karon's greatest battle had only just begun with his own dark nature. After the shadows were destroyed, a deep silence fell over the planet Lyra. Karon, far from enjoying the taste of victory, began to feel the dark forces within him slowly consuming him. He was becoming a prisoner of uncontrollable darkness. Queen Aria and the others, witnessing Karon's transformation, felt an overwhelming wave of concern wash over them. Darkness had always been his ally, but now that power was turning against him. Karon, his face filled with anguish, turned to the queens. Selene, Astrea, and Aria gazed at him with a mixture of emotions. They had all become part of his empire, but now they were watching their emperor succumb to the very force he had once commanded. Karon. Aria began, her voice heavy with sadness. What will happen if you can't control this power? What will become of your empires? Karon struggled to remain standing as he took a deep breath. This is my fate, he said, his voice dark and strained. The darkness belongs to me, but losing control over it may very well bring about the downfall of this empire. Selene stepped closer, her eyes still holding a flicker of hope. We are here with you, Karon, but if this power consumes you, it won't just be you. It will be everything in the universe that gets destroyed. Karon narrowed his eyes as he looked at Selene. In that moment, he realized that the darkness within him was no longer something he could control. The battle with the shadows had triggered a chain reaction, allowing the dark forces to consume his body piece by piece. His own empire now wielded the power to destroy him. Suddenly, a massive wave of energy appeared in the sky. This energy came from Nyx, the Queen of Darkness. The darkness itself was being called back from the depths of the universe. Nyx's warning was coming true. Darkness cannot always be controlled. Nyx had come to restore balance, intervening in Karon's fate. As the dark forces began to engulf Karon, Nyx appeared before them in a projection. Her eyes were lost in the deep shadows. Once a queen Karon had conquered, she now held the power to decide his fate. Karon Valtor, Nyx said, her voice resonating from the depths of the cosmos. You have built your dark empire, but darkness cannot always be controlled. This power is not only yours, it is part of the universe itself. If you try to claim it all, you will not only destroy yourself, but the entire universe. Karon took a deep breath at Nyx's words. His empire was slowly slipping from his control. If he could not master this power, he would bring ruin to himself, the queens, and all the galaxies he had conquered. Yet, Karon could not give up his desire to control the darkness. His destiny was to wield this power to create an eternal empire. I cannot change my fate, Karon said, a deep gleam of darkness in his eyes. I've given everything to build this empire. Darkness is my destiny. Nyx responded with a cold expression. This power is not yours alone, Karon. Darkness is part of the universe. If you upset this balance, the darkness will consume you and everything else. At that moment, Selene, Astrea, and Aria stepped forward. They had all become part of this dark empire, but now the fate of their leader was tied to their own destinies. Karon had a choice: either release the dark power and save his empire, or be consumed by it, dooming everything to oblivion. Karon, Selene said softly yet firmly, you have to let go of this darkness. Otherwise, we will all be destroyed. Astrea agreed, her voice tinged with urgency. This power is no longer under your control. We must preserve the balance of the universe. Aria, standing beside them, gave Karon a final look. If this empire falls, the entire galaxy will plunge into darkness. Karon took a deep breath and closed his eyes. This was the greatest battle he had ever fought, not against enemies, but within himself. To let go of the power he had fought so hard to attain seemed impossible. But the Queen's words and Nyx's warning showed him that he had to make a choice. If he did not release the dark power, his empire would collapse under its own weight. Darkness would consume everything, leaving only a void in its wake. But if he released it, he would lose his empire, though the queens and the galaxies would survive. Karon opened his eyes, his expression resolute. Darkness is my fate, but I must release this power. Nyx nodded. It is the only way to restore balance to the universe. Karon raised his hands and began to release all the dark energy within him. Stardust, moonlight, and dark energy combined and spread across the universe. This energy dispersed to every corner of the cosmos, leaving Karon's body. The dark forces were no longer under his control. Finally, Karon's body was completely drained of its power. He had lost his strength. The empire he had built was crumbling, but the balance of the universe had been restored. Releasing the dark power had marked the end of Karon's reign, but the queens and the galaxies had been saved. Karon slowly collapsed to the ground as Selene, Astrea, and Aria gathered around him. Karon, with one final glance at the queens, closed his eyes. "The empire has ended," he whispered, "but you will continue." Karon's dark empire had perished along with him, but the queens and the galaxies now had a future to rebuild. Karon's power had dispersed into the universe, this time as part of a restored balance.